It is a Monday edition of Glenn Clark Radio as we continue along. Let's keep talking some football. Our next guest, former Ravens offensive coordinator, former NFL and CFL head coach. He has a new book out. It's called Teaching the Game. He is Marc Trestman, and he is with us now here on GCR. Coach, it's Glenn back in Baltimore. It's great to see you. Thank you so much for taking the time for us. We really appreciate you doing it.
Glenn, it's a privilege to be on with you. It looks like it's hat day.
It
So
is,
I decided
everybody.
you got to have a hat on
Now wait a second.
Monday.
What is yours? I got to figure out what I'm looking at.
Do you want to put a bet on it, or do you want to just take a shot at it?
It looks like an M&T. Is it, Mark?
Oh,
It's
I couldn't even tell that. Oh, yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
How long have you been doing the Marc Trestman? But can we now? This is the real question. Can we get some hats sent back here for us?
This is Travis Matthews. You can go into your local store.
Oh, it's
go
not
on to
even Marc Trestman. Oh,
Mathis.com, and I'm sure you'll be able to find a hat.
All right, we'll go that route then. Coach, teaching the game, kind of a love letter, it seems like, from you. Tell me about, why. I know you've written before. Why was this the route that you wanted to go? What you wanted to convey with this book?
Well, thanks for having me on. This is a look at it right here, and I'm really proud of it. It all started back at the University of Michigan when I visited Jim during training camp. He had a evening meeting called Teach the Game. When I went to the Chargers with Jim in 24, he had me put together these Teach the Game meetings, which were evening meetings, hour-long meetings, where we would have different aspects of the game being taught by different coaches. That's really the genesis of the book, and I decided that after retiring in March of 25, I was going to sit down and basically write a thank you note to the coaches and the players who had contributed to me learning the game. And so I sat down. It started with basically, I felt that every coach, every player should have to see the game from the eyes of the quarterback and standing behind the quarterback. So the first one third of the book is about the quarterback position, how he's coached, and all the different elements of playing the position. It goes into the week in the life of the quarterback, 40 seconds between each play, and then it goes into a situational football from all three phases, from all three sides. Um, as I say, the book isn't my book, it's our book. I grinded on it for 18 months. I'm proud of it. And I think along the way, I'm hopeful it'll help coaches at every level, players at every level, and to get to be better at the game and to help them teach the game, and for fans who want to know a little bit more about it.
Coach, I'm going to ask a dumb guy question. Although basically, if it's me, they're all dumb guy questions.
There are no dumb questions.
We were talking earlier in the show from a baseball standpoint. There was this very specific circumstance in the Orioles game yesterday where the bases were loaded in the bottom of the 10th inning, nobody was out, and Pete Alonso, it's a line drive to first base, he gets doubled off, and we realize, oh my gosh, in this spot, the uniqueness of this spot, Pete Alonso shouldn't even been leading off of first base, right? Like, he should have just been stuck to the bag because his run didn't count. And we just, as much baseball as we've watched, we've never thought about it. As someone who has been around football for as long as you have and has done it at the highest level, who's been a champion, do you still find yourself, like, learning things about the game? You mentioned, like, these meetings and other coaches. Do you still find things from time to time where you're like, man, I thought I knew everything there was to know about this sport, and here I am learning something new?
Well, you think you know everything, you really know nothing. You never stop learning. I will say I've been teaching a leadership course at the University of Miami Law School for the last 5 years, and I incorporated in the last chapter a leadership just a leadership handbook for young coaches and coaches of all and leaders. And the one thing I found in my life, I've never stopped learning. And football's an interesting game. It's 11 on 11. There's probably 11 to the 11th power, exponential different ways of looking at the game. And that's one of the things I reflect on in the book. The book isn't the answers to every question. The book is a way of looking at situations, whatever they might be. And they're not always the way Declan Doyle or Jesse Minter will look at the game, but it will open it up to questions and conversations that can help better the game. But we never stop learning in football. We never stop learning in life. And I think the hunger to learn is what's motivated me throughout my career. It still does. as a retired professional football coach.
What was the most important lesson that you had to learn, either playing in high school, college, the NFL, or as a young coach, in order to have a 5+ decade long run of playing and coaching? What was the single most important lesson that you needed to learn about football, Coach?
Well, it's really an excellent question. And I would say, and I say this to young coaches and coaches all the time because I was guilty of it as a young coach, and that is when the task, when the X's and O's become where you focus on, and it becomes more than the people, then you're going to find yourself in a losing situation. Football is the game of football is not being in the football business. Football is the ultimate people business, and the people have got to come first. People have to know you're authentic. They have to know you listen to them, you care for them, um, and that goes to not only your competency, which allows you to let them believe you can help them master their craft, but it goes to your vulnerability. The vulnerability-based trust is what really allows you to lead them and give them this kind of advice that they will listen to. When the task is more important than the people, the the the, the people lose.
It's so funny to hear you say that. Marc Trestman is with us. The book is Teaching the Game, and we've linked it up on our Twitter account at Glenn Clark Radio, so you can find it. What you just described, I feel like someone is listening right now and saying, well, then explain Bill Belichick, right? Like, explain how someone so stoic and could have such great success, and didn't we learn that you're supposed to take like the personality out of it and just care about the rigid football of it all? And maybe the answer is we don't know as much about Bill Belichick as we think we do.
Yeah, I think the second half of that is probably true. I mean, Bill is from a different era. I always look at Tom Coughlin,
Hmm.
who when you look at his career, and you can see that in the book that he wrote, he completely changed from being transactional to transformational. And I think that, you know, I can't speak for Bill. I was never in the locker room with him. I found him, and I don't know him well, to be extremely personable, um, extremely respectful, um, and somebody you can go talk to and have a conversation with. So perception is, and I think we all should know this, that perception is not always what the reality is in the National Football League. Sometimes even the most inquisitive people outside the game don't really get to know what really goes on inside the locker room. So I can't speak for that.
Marc, you obviously, as I referenced, have been around this game for such a long time. And I'm not trying to call you old when I say that. I'm just, showing you your respect. We talk a lot about how the game has changed. And for so many people, that change is a perceived negative, right? Like that football isn't what it once was. I, on the flip side, have said, right, but, more people watch football than ever. I don't know that the change has all been negative. Where are you with how the game has changed and the good versus bad that it's been for the sport?
Yeah, I don't. I think the game is always evolving. I still think it's the greatest game on earth. I still think it's played by some of the most incredible athletes, elite athletes. That the fans should know some of the greatest people you could ever be around are involved in the game and playing the game. I found very few players in my very long career that were not only elite players but elite people. And that I enjoyed and loved and loved coaching. So. I think the quarterback position is as good as it's ever been. Um, I think that the evolution of the game, because practices are orchestrated and such that, and the preseason now is shorter, that we may not even find out what these teams are all about to the middle or late September. But I still think it's the greatest game. And I think when you watch it, the fundamentals have stayed the same forever. There has to be ball security. There has to be block destruction. There has to be ball disruption. There has to be great tackling, and there has to be pursuit to the ball. Those are fundamentals that every team has to learn, and any fan can watch a game and say, does this team have a composite of these 5 or 6 fundamentals? And if they do, and they take care of the ball, the quarterback takes care of the ball, there's a good chance they'll be in the playoffs and have a chance to play for a championship. So I don't see the dissolution of the game. I think it's evolving, and I think the players are better than ever.
Coach, you obviously mentioned being out with the Chargers and Jim, and of course, Jesse was on that staff, and I know you were on other sides of the ball at that point, but what he brought, it changed that defense quickly, right? And of course, in Baltimore, we're hoping it can be almost like the Mike Macdonaldian, immediate impact that Jesse Minter can make. Can you shed some light, as we're still getting to know him, on what we should know about the young head coach of the Ravens, and maybe like what his special sauce is that's allowed him to rise to this point?
Well, I think number one is he's extremely competent and understands the game on the defensive side of the ball as well as anybody I've been around. I've been in team meetings with him enough to know that he is an elite communicator. He can do it in a filtered fashion. He doesn't go unfiltered. He's clean. He's disciplined in his presentation, and he knows how to reach the players. And he does it with transparency and consistency. He's extremely emotionally intelligent. You're not going to see a guy jumping up and down, and there'll be moments, but he's a guy who will be able to see the big picture, see it from not just the defensive side, but the offense, and understanding the importance of special teams. So I think there'll be a growing process for Jesse, but I have no doubt in my mind that the Ravens have made a very, very good hire.
What you just said about the emotional intelligence really jumps out at me, Coach, because as we talk about how the game has changed, you referenced Tom Coughlin a minute ago. I think that, like, what we saw from Mike Macdonald, and it's such an obvious comparison because of the Michigan ties, the Ravens ties, but the people that I've talked to that were around both of them said they are very similar in that they know how to meet this new generation of football players where they are and coach them in a way. You just said, maybe every now and then you're going to see that from him, but that emotional intelligence, that ability to just coach them and be there with this generation of player. How much did you see that in Jesse, and how much do you feel like that's kind of necessary at this point in order to communicate with players in 2026 that might be different than 20, 15 years ago?
Well, we all know, it's a great question. We all know that the world's changed dramatically. The locker room isn't locked anymore.
Yeah.
Anybody in a locker room can press send, and the whole world is going to find out in a split second. So there has to be that understanding. I think that you've hit it right. I mean, Mike Macdonald is the new brand of what a professional football coach should do, and most important, do and say. I mean, he has a great understanding what leadership is and how to lead the next generation. Sean McVay is that same guy. They're articulate enough and vulnerable enough to understand that their title means nothing. It doesn't give them license to lead. Those are and I think, as from fan bases, they should really look to those guys, their words, how they say it, the conciseness and the vulnerability, and transparency that they talk about it, is where NFL coaches are going, and will be good role models for younger coaches, high school coaches, college coaches, and so forth. I think Jesse can be in that mode. I mean, he still hasn't been when you step into the shoes of a head coach, it's a different world.
Sure.
He's certainly well prepared. I think he deserves time. I think he'll grow as he now gets involved, not just with one side of the ball, with all three sides. The complementary football that every head coach wants to play in some fashion, whatever that philosophy is. But I think you're right. I think your early assessment is right. There are and those of people who have been around him. I think that's correct.
You are a quarterback guy, all right? We know that about you. We think about quarterbacks when we think about Marc Trestman. I wanted to ask you about two guys. One you were with, one you weren't. But the one that you were with, we still have a very romantic love affair with Joe Flacco in this town, Mark. Like, until they might have to face him like on New Year's Eve, and he's a Bengal. But there's this love affair with Joe in Baltimore, and it's interesting because I've gotten to know Joe so well over the years, and I have friends around the game who say, you know what, I'm surprised that Joe's still doing this. I didn't know he cared this much about the game. And I understand that because Joe's personality is a little bit different. But the time that you spent around him, like, what did you get to know about him and how deeply he cares about the game? And are you surprised that here he is still grinding away as a backup quarterback this deep in his life when he could walk away and choose to live obviously a really good life?
Yeah, I think there's a two-part answer. You hit both of them. Being with him, Joe was always prepared, always knew the game plan, never had to repeat a play to him. Was a great teammate, on time, doing all the things, but you would not know he loved the game as much, and this is the second part, that he loves the game of football as much as he does, because he was just a quiet presence,
Yeah.
around me, around the coaches. During practice, he did his job. He wasn't a guy to, be excessively emotional in any way, and I don't think we saw that. And standing behind him, watching him throw the football, like I say in my book, for a lot of it just leaves you breathless to watch the ball come out of his hand and spin out of his hand, because I don't think I ever saw the ball wobble during the time I was with him. So I guess I can't say I'm surprised. I can say that he always took very good care of himself, and he doesn't really look any different than he did in the last couple games that I saw him last year than he did in 2000 15 and 16, which it's incredible to say that it's been 12 years, but he looks the same.
It's joy. It's a joy to see him out there still doing it. And
It
to your
really
point,
is. It really is.
it's just
It's aspirational for sure.
and then, Joe's a gem. Obviously, the guy that you didn't get to coach in Baltimore is clearly a gem. Lamar Jackson's a Hall of Famer, right? Like, he's going to go down as one of the greatest to ever play the game. One, like, after you saw him, did you say to yourself, gosh, man, if only that guy had been around a year earlier? But then two, like, what do you make of how he's so constantly judged, right? Like, obviously he wants to win a championship. The Ravens want to win a championship. But what do you make of, like, the never-ending goalpost movement when it comes to Lamar Jackson, and the way that people have still found ways to criticize someone who, he's a two-time MVP, he's a Hall of Famer, he's one of the greats of all time?
Yeah, I don't get it. That's all I can say. I mean, as a coach, I don't get it. I mean, he's he's everything you'd want in a quarterback, and it's clear to me over time how much he loves football and loves to lead his team, loves to win. You said it. I just think that he's so unusually gifted that I think maybe, I can only speak. I'm just throwing caution to the wind here. That maybe when people look at him and watch him play, he just doesn't look like anybody who's ever played the game in the way that he can play it, and um, with such explosive movement, such a skill set. He's the flair for the dramatic. He's got it all, and he's done it all. And um, if there, I don't listen to all of it, but if there's this questioning of him, I would just call it ridiculous.
Absurd.
I don't think there's any coach, any NFL coach who wouldn't want to have the opportunity and really a privilege to be in the same meeting room with him.
The book is Teaching the Game. Coach, I'm sorry I didn't get it already so that I could have read it before we chatted with you, but I'm really looking forward to diving in to the book and finding out more. And as I said, we've linked it up on our Twitter account at Glenn Clark Radio so that folks can go and find it. Coach, is there anything else we can plug for you?
No, you guys done a great. Like I said, here's what it looks like. I'm really proud. Tony Dungy and Steve Young
That's
did the
not a bad duo, by the
forwards.
way. Just a couple of Hall of Famers.
Yeah, Tony and I went to college together. We've known each other for 50 years. We played against each other, obviously, in the NFL, and had a chance to coach Steve in San Francisco, and they did a nice job. And Ernie Accorsi, former GM, who was around Baltimore for a while in his young age, and John Harbaugh. If you read some of the Instagram, gave a really tremendous endorsement, which meant a lot to me. And I think they'll just find it interesting. Read the introduction, read the acknowledgments, and then go through the table of contents If a coach is preparing for the season, it's a good time it's a good check the box of things you have to cover. And for anybody who wants to, any coach, if you want to be a head coach, you've got to learn the game through the eyes of the quarterback. You got to understand how he's the most important guy in the building, and what it looks like and how he gets ready to play a game. So I think there's something for everybody. But in 600, I could only do 632 pages. I had to cut it down 500, and it still doesn't even scratch the surface of what the game of football all about, but it'll give the fans an idea. And thank you for letting me talk about it today. It means a lot, guys.
Coach, we can't wait to dive in. Appreciate you taking the time for us. Would love to do it again soon. Thanks so much.
Great questions, and go Ravens. Huh?
I love that. Love that.
Take
Thank
care.
you, Coach. Coach Marc
Okay,
Trestman.
guys, have a great week.
You
Bye-bye.
as well. Taking the time for us this morning. Appreciate him doing that.